Hello and welcome to our top 10 formative political moments. I'm Iadarola and Francesca Fiorentini is here. How's it going, Francesca?
Hey, I'm excited for this one.
I know when I sent
big.
it to you, it just sort of like hit me. I was like doing the rundown last night. I was thinking, what's a good one that's like sort of political, but more personal? Some of them are just sort of political. And I thought this could be a fun one. It's tough though.
Yeah.
Like it's both tough to literally put together a list, but it's tough to know what it is that really has had the most lingering impact on you. So I did my best to put together some different things, but if you were to ask me on any day, the answers could be totally different, I bet. But anyway, if you're watching this, it's because you're one of our YouTube tier 2 or tier 3 members. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel and getting access to this, as well as all of our past top 10s. We've got like at least 5 now. The last one was my top 10 board games of all time. A lot of fun there. And so this one's slightly more political. Francesca, would you like to go first with your number 5?
Yeah, I mean, so this is formative for us as people, right?
Like something that's really informed or changed or started your political thing.
Okay, my first 2 are related. I've got a lot of.
We're probably gonna have some overlap here, maybe.
We're probably gonna have some overlap. But like, yeah, if we can get personal rather than making it formative, I was gonna be like, NAFTA is a big one that has reshaped our entire like world, my world, my life. But I definitely will say the election of George W. Bush when I was not able to vote yet, but on the cusp of being able to vote, and the then rapid descent into like demagoguery and war and giant media consensus. I don't know. There's just like a dark period when Bush was elected. So, but my number 1, maybe, I guess my first one isn't Bush, but it is. I would just say 9/11. Let's just say 9/11. I was in New York when 9/11 happened.
Oh wow.
I was just a freshman in college. I went to undergrad at NYU, and that was so formative to me. And everything that came after it, and the reaction of our government when I was in a moment where I thought, well, surely we're gonna figure out who did this and like hold those people accountable, not bomb 2 countries. So kind of 9/11 and the war on terror and coming of age when you understood that your government was very much not good, very much not the good guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that all happened under George W. Bush. So that's sort of an amalgamation of one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I theoretically might have that higher up on my list, so I'll mostly talk about it there. But yeah, okay. when you realize, for the first time as a kid, when you realize that things can be bad.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to be politics. Like I don't remember which movie, but like learning that movies can suck. Like you just assume as a kid, well, they wouldn't have made it if it would suck. They wouldn't put all this money into it. No, sometimes they just make stuff that sucks actually. And they make governments that suck too. Most of them actually. Anyway, my number 5 is a little bit different. My number 5 is Bernie Sanders' first run for the presidency. Because at this point in 2015, I had been paying attention to politics for a decade and a half or whatever. I had been covering politics for a few years, but it felt very sort of arm's length. Like at this point, by the time I started doing political stuff in the media, I already knew who Obama was, and I knew that he wasn't like fully 100% my guy politically. We didn't agree on a lot of stuff. But then Bernie ran, and it was so exciting. Like he said the things I wanted him to say for the most part. He had the positions I wanted him to have. He was unabashed in differentiating himself from Hillary Clinton. And the movement that sort of built, I think for a lot of people that was very important, not necessarily in our age range, but maybe a little bit younger. It was a very exciting time in politics that seemed to have a lot of potential.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of mine, but I can skip it. I think we must have similar ones, but I just want to add to that like it was the first time for me where I felt like, oh, you don't have to be evil to run for president, like, or you don't have to be sort of like a shrewd, conniving, like, or a perfectly spoken or a perfect looking, politician in order to win. And so, or in order to run, and you can actually run on your real values, not just sort of like the values that have been, lab tested and crowd tested, like that. I think he showed a way, especially for a radical like me and someone on the left, that electoral politics absolutely matter. As someone who's mostly focused more on issues and cared more about like what's happening at the grassroots and the structural stuff, they're like, hey, you can talk about the structural stuff and also still make a really, really solid run at the White House twice.
Yeah, and both of them for different reasons. And
yeah,
it really felt at the end there in the second one that he was gonna win. Anyway, that's my number 5.
Nice.
What's your number 4?
Oh God, okay, number 4. This is very difficult because these are all again blending together. But number 4, related to my number 1 about 9/11, was when Bush was reelected. So I just want everyone to imagine, and this was the same fear that I was having before this election, that Trump would be reelected. The power of an incumbent is huge, and yet at the time, I was a young anti-war activist who thought, look, the war was going horribly in Iraq, right? It was based on a lie. Now it's going horribly. The world knows that this is awful, and the American people don't want this war anymore. 2004, right? No, they absolutely were fine with more war. And more importantly, the Democratic Party put up John Kerry as an alternative to George W. Bush, someone who not just lacked, the any kind of political pizzazz or interest or intrigue, but really tried to run on a platform of, I'm gonna do the war on terror better than George W. Bush, which was ridiculous. And I remember going to watching debate parties where he would be like, I'm gonna get Osama, and then all these Democrats would be like, woo, and it's like, is that the language we need to be putting out right now? Is that really an alternative to Bush? You're just saying you'll do Bush better? You're saying you'll do the war on terror better? I think the whole thing, right? I think the whole thing is premised on a lot of BS. So I would say that was formative, and the way that, and I think a lot of young activists and a lot of young leftists need to learn this lesson, is that just because you feel like you're in the moral right, and just because you are in the moral right, doesn't mean that there is a political will or even a populace or a population that's going to vote the right way. And that takes so much more work, sadly. And just being right about something is not gonna make it happen.
More in this area to come.
Yeah.
My number 4 is, and this is gonna seem like a weird one. This is a much more specific thing. A lot of mine are fairly broad. My number 4 is the 2004 Democratic National Convention, the keynote speech. Do you remember it, Francesca?
No.
It was the keynote speech. It was by a young politician by the name of Barack Obama.
Yes.
And I still remember sitting in a dorm watching that speech, and I got hyped. Like it's the political speech of my life. The reason it's my number 4 though is that it maybe shouldn't have been. Like I guess to the extent that I could at that point in my life sort of fall in love with a politician, I was down for Obama when I heard that speech. I was like, yes, tell me more. And I hadn't yet really gotten that, they cannot deliver or maybe not even totally mean it. And so I got so into him that, in 2008, I was ready to go in the primary. At that point, I was in grad school. I still remember like all the campus debate about which one of them should win. But it was that moment that really launched me into like being down for Obama. And I had to learn a lot over the course of that whole process. Good speech though, damn good speech.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I cried mostly because Bush was out. And I definitely took to the streets to celebrate Obama winning. But then I was also like, he's gonna disappoint us. And my friend was like, shut up, just shut up and enjoy it. And I was like, but he's not really what we need, shut up. I definitely am someone who's to the left of Obama, but yes, you cannot deny being inspired by that. And I mean, I don't believe that our politics should just be this pendulum that swings back and forth, but like it was really interesting that like after 8 years of Bush, people are gonna vote in the first black president. Like that is not insignificant. And also, if we had had 4 more years of Trump, would we have gotten Bernie? Probably not. I don't want to dabble in that kind of accelerationist thinking, of course. Let's see, political moments, top formative political moments. Number 3, which is in no real order for me. It's
tough.
It is really, it's a hard one. But I will say that like your first concert, your first demonstration is something that you never forget. And whether your parents brought you to a demonstration when you were little, but one of my first demonstrations was against the World Trade Organization and the World Bank, and like just I got politicized through the global justice movement, which again, for a reminder, was sort of against like endless free trade, American corporations everywhere. By the way, spoiler, we lost that fight. There is a McDonald's everywhere, and but I think for me a political moment was it's so politicizing when you finally take to the streets, when you join with your fellow Americans, when you stand in solidarity with people and you actually exercise your First Amendment right, and you realize this is why we live in this country. And also, we're not that free. Like I've been arrested twice. Once I was deliberately arrested as a direct action, and once I was just on the sidewalk and didn't want to be arrested. So it is also a politicizing moment to protest and see that, oh yeah, these guys don't care. These riot police don't care about my freedom of speech at all, unless you're a white nationalist, in which case, go right ahead.
Ooh, you should have been a Proud Boy at that point.
Yeah, but yes, I think you're
the 2003 era Proud Boy.
God, your first demo is always politicizing. I was arrested outside of the United Nations when the Iraq War started, and Hans Blix was presenting his evidence to the UN, and I was screaming at the cameras as they were like
I wish I could
hauling me away. I don't know where it is. And I was just like, the UN has a responsibility. And I was just like, wearing my Carhartt pants that I had to clip the sides of because Carhartt aren't meant for women with hips or so.
I'm just glad that the first footage of you isn't like jet fuel can't melt steel beams.
No,
maybe it is for some people.
Anyway. I had to organize with some of the people I worked with then went on to be like 9/11 truthers, and I was like, oh God, oh God. Yeah. But yes, being arrested, and taking to the streets, I think is really, everyone should do it. Do it.
Yeah. My number 3 is going to be, I don't want to speak definitively and spoil the rest of the list, but it's a recent one, and that is the experience of the lockdown. I think the pandemic is pretty big one for a lot of reasons. For me, though, it's not much to do with the government, really. A little bit. I had some lingering hope that as troglodytish as Trump and his administration have been, that they would stop 500,000 people from being killed by the end of this, surely. So there was a little bit of waking up to that. Like even after years into Trump, thinking, well, but there's still some base level that the government has to function, right? But mainly it's a process of getting to know what millions of your fellow Americans are actually like. And they're awful in a lot of ways, sure. And we've known that for a long time. But the anti-mask stuff, those protests, I feel like if you can get people against protecting themselves from a virus, I don't know what meaningful thing you can't get them on. Like that's the lowest a society can go. People protesting for their right to infect people with a pathogen. And that happened very recently, and I'm still processing it. And that's now, they're getting crazier in the QAnon stuff. So I don't know what that looks like in 5 years. But we are a country that has, Bernie, and it has people who think coughing in a Trader Joe checkout person's face is the most important exercise of your rights as an American that you can possibly pursue. So the lockdown is still ongoing, obviously, but that was pretty formative in a number of different ways.
My God, that's a good one. That is a very good one. Yeah, we're a sick country, and it took an actual virus to expose just how sick we are when it comes to our idea of what freedom really means. One of my moments is definitely living outside of the country, but I don't want to make it's not like a moment like specific, but I just want to encourage everyone when you travel to try and do that. No, but yeah, okay, let's make it a moment. I lived in Argentina for 5 years, and I've never felt more free. I'm an American, grew up here, but I've never felt more free than when I lived in another country. Why? Because the government that currently was in power when I was there, not Macri, not the current government, but the Kirchner government, had a policy of like zero repression when it came to protests. And so you could take the streets and lock down and like march, and like they didn't shoot rubber bullets at you because the previous administration had been so horribly repressive. And so I've never felt freer. I was like, oh wow, freedom of expression. You're not getting you're just not running from tear gas right now. And that I think was really formative to see how other countries actually are better at protecting human and civil rights. And related to that, we're talking about a country that suffered dictatorships. And in my mind, I felt like the closest thing I could see to a coup was really the George W. Bush presidency, that he didn't win, right? That was decided by the Supreme Court. That was a coup. And there was an absolute consensus once again in that time there was no resistance. There was no hashtag resistance even, right?
There were no hashtags.
There were no hashtags. The media was completely in lockstep with the march to war with George W. Bush. That was Cheney, they did fascism smart. And but for me, like living in a country that had a dictatorship and then seeing the ways that as soon as this new president came to power, they took down the photographs and the paintings and portraits of the former military dictators, of the military junta, and what that meant. And then they continually reminded people through advertisements, through public awareness, that we're never going back. Nunca más, we're never forgetting. We know what the dictatorship was like, and we fight for memoria, right? They would always say we're fighting for memory. Let's never forget the 30,000 disappeared. And I think that we need that in this country, whether it's slavery, whether it's the Bush administration, whether it's the 400,000 and counting people who are dead from COVID. Like, let's have more public consciousness. And I hope that's something that the Biden administration does, is like, let's remember, let's not be afraid to look back and say that was our past. Confederacy's dead, y'all. Like we are not forgetting that past, but we're learning from it. So anyway, that's a very long moment, but it was very formative for me.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I wonder about what effect in that area the Biden time will have. I feel like one of the positives of the Trump era was a lot of people waking up in a bunch of different issue areas. I think that was really big in terms of the environmental movement sort of returning after being gone for 15 years or whatever, or in terms of its actual influence. Yeah. My number 2 is actually one of your earlier numbers. It's Bush getting reelected because. Yeah, the 2004 campaign was the first presidential campaign I followed. And so the first candidate I supported was Kerry. Just so unsatisfying. In the primary, I was originally for Howard Dean. That went well. And I might have at one point liked who's the awful guy with the nice hair? Edwards. Yeah, but
first of all, I liked Edwards except for when he cheated on his wife with cancer, etc. But Kucinich was running in 2004 too. Remember Dennis?
Yes, he seemed.
Oh,
wish
is he a
that
little too
someone
left for you?
No, it's not that necessary. I just wish someone else had been delivering the message. But anyway, yeah, because we'd been years into the war and it was really not going well.
Not going well.
Think. And that's years of campus demonstrations against the war, international demonstrations against the war. He was just doing so badly. How could he possibly get reelected?
Yep.
And then you had the Swift voting, and Kerry's like, oh God, Kerry, but like seeing a president who had no right being reelected, and in the way, and being so afraid of what it signified. Like 4 more years of Cheney, 4 more years of the Patriot Act, 4 more years of all, like we're going in the wrong direction in so many different ways. It was just a horrifying experience, and I was shocked that it could happen.
Someone committed suicide outside of the World Trade Center memorial when he was reelected. I remember that. It seemed like very much a political protest. Yeah, it was a horrifying time, and things did get worse. Things absolutely.
Katrina, and then the economy fell apart. Like it was actually worse. Our predictions were not wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Number one, and it's fitting that we're in a moment, and we're fitting that we are in this moment where we're saying goodbye to him. But of course, the election of Donald Trump, and I think everything that it has meant, but more importantly, it's the how. It's how he was elected, how he was inflated by the media, and then once he was in office, how we were unable to safeguard against his worst instincts, and how our democracy that's clearly set up more on norms than on actual rule of law can just crumble when someone wants to come in there and be a demagogue. And so it revealed just how fragile our democracy is, but it also revealed just how many go along MFers there are, both in the media and in democracy and in DC itself, which is like, oh, as long as you play by these rules, you could be a Dick Cheney. You know what I mean? So I guess what I mean is like, what I'm trying to say is it would have been so easy for him to have been able to lull and seduce DC and the media, but he didn't, and yet he was still able to get away with what he did. So it's like, I just feel like it was such a failure, such a letdown for all Americans that we allowed someone like that to assume office and then weren't able to properly protect the actual institutions of democracy from his worst instincts. And I also think it just revealed the Democrats as well. I mean, Obama meeting with him the day after, it's like, or a couple days after, I get it. Like, I get that that's what you have to do, but this is a man who straight up got famous off of calling you like essentially a foreign-born like Muslim terrorist. Like, you really gonna shake his hand a couple days after? So understanding that we need a better opposition party, I think that's crystallized it completely. And we're not out of the woods, but that election was, wow.
That would probably be my number 6. Trump getting elected. Some of it's worked into my lockdown one, but huge failure, massive failure of the Republican Party to weed people out like him because they thought that they were going to in the primary, and of our society. Like, our Americans are awful in many ways, but letting him get elected, even if he didn't win the popular vote, is a failure on more levels than I could probably come up with. But anyway, my number 1 is one of your previous ones, and it's probably pretty obvious. It's 9/11. Because of my age, if I was 2 years older, it'd probably be the 2000 election, but that was before I was politically awakened, because I was politically awakened by 9/11. It was same as you. It was 2 weeks into my freshman semester. I remember every moment. I lived in a quad, so everyone on the floor basically crammed into our room to watch it in real time as it happened. And suddenly politics mattered. I had not grown up in a political family. I didn't know anything about it. I couldn't have told you if Gore had been the Democrat or the Republican in the previous election. But then it was just demonstrations on campus and everyone was talking about it. at that point was an engineering student. Within a year, I'd switched over to doing political science and suddenly cared about it in a way that my family never encouraged before. I mean, maybe it was inevitable that something would get me into politics, but it's possible that I would have just been writing computer games my whole life or something and not really caring about it. But 9/11 happened and the Patriot Act happened and all this scary stuff in the media and the war, and anybody who opposed it was like exiled effectively. Like, you don't talk about cancel culture. Speak out against the war in the first couple of years.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
Michael Moore gets booed at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Right? He gets booed at the Oscars for winning for Bowling for Columbine. A few years later, everyone loves him. So yeah, Hollywood was all about the war too. Keep going, John.
No, there's not much more. It's like, it's for the ways that it affected everybody. This is not a unique one in any way, but it was huge, and it's still like some of the worst parts of it we still have. We still like the infrastructure of the Patriot Act, DHS, the wars themselves. We still have all of this. My entire time in politics, from the first moment to as I'm speaking this sentence, we haven't gotten past the majority of that yet. And so there can't be anything bigger than that for me. If I was a little bit older, it'd probably be the 2000 election. An election literally being stolen, and then just everybody being like, I guess they stole it.
I made little pins that said ambushed. I wasn't that political, but I wrote like ambushed and I like wore it around. I was like, see, we got ambushed. But it wasn't until 9/11 that it was like,
yeah,
they were cute.
Because he had almost a year of his presidency where, like, granted I was young, it's not like a ton of huge stuff was really happening. Like there was like the spy plane crisis with China that nobody remembers. But like it seemed like, oh, well, okay, they stole the election, but like, not a huge difference.
He was a joke. Bush was a joke. And this is the thing, we are still feeling the ramifications of the Bush administration right now. You're absolutely right, John. I know we have to wrap it up, but
we do. But
you're not a member at this point. Although I guess we're only talking to members.
We're only talking to members. Unless it's pirated. But anyway, this is a tough one. So thank you for doing the self-analysis, putting this together. I appreciate it. And I learned a little bit more about you, and hopefully the audience did too. So everybody watching this, our level 2 and level 3 members, thank you so much for continuing to support us. Hope that you're enjoying these. You can of course always suggest, whether by tweet, responding in the comments to this video, future top 10s that you'd like to see, whether they're political or otherwise. We like both, and we look forward to doing more in the future. So thank you, and bye for now. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.